Okay. Welcome to the Board of Voters Forum for the Harbor Commission of the district and later on the Cabrillo Unified School District. I'm Dave Olson, the chair of the Midcoast Community Council, one of your co-hosts. And this is Jackie from the League of Women Voters of Northern Central San Mateo County, the other sponsor for these forums and the one who's actually going to run the show. For anybody who hasn't been here before, the bathroom is through that door and down the hall to the right. Okay. Now I will turn it over to Jackie.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm Jackie Jacoberger, and I'm a longtime member of the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County. And I'd like to say also thank you to the Midcoast Community Council for sponsoring the forum. First, we have the standard announcements to begin. If you would please turn off or silence your cell phones so the candidates aren't interrupted when they speak. And we also ask that there be no campaign literature in the room. It can be outside, but not in the room. I'll tell you, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, and we have both men and women. And our purpose is to promote active and informed participation in government. And events like this increase the voters' knowledge about the candidates and the issues and helps them to make better decisions when they go to cast their ballot. You don't go to the polls all now. But we really appreciate when a group like the council sponsors it, it helps us because we can't cover we have all the cities from San Carlos up to Daly City and from the coast to the bay. So we can't do it by ourselves, so we really appreciate the other groups doing it. Now, the purpose of a candidate forum is to provide an opportunity for all the candidates to be heard at one time and to be questioned by you, the audience. So we hope that by bringing the candidates and voters together, you'll be better informed and will make a wise decision on election day. And so we're going to ask you to hold your applause until the end because we want to make sure that it's not an event for the supporters, the opponents of anybody to make their wishes known during the candidate forum. So at the end, we will thank everybody with our applause. Now, during this portion of the forum, you're going to hear from the candidates for the San Mateo County Harbor District Commissioner. There are 4 candidates for 2 seats, and the term of office is 4 years. So the candidates are seated in alphabetical order. Ed Lorenas, Nancy Raring, Seppi Richardson, and Henry Sutter are the 4 candidates. The ground rules for tonight, the opening, each candidate's going to have 2 minutes for an opening statement. During the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. And all the candidates will be able to answer every question. So when you submit your questions, don't submit them to one person. If you do, we ask everybody anyway to be able to respond. So make them general enough that everybody can answer. And then at the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And our timekeeper is right here. It's Betty Fleming. She will hold up a warning sign when the candidate has 1 minute left, and then when 30 seconds is left. And at the end of the time, she'll hold up the stop sign until the candidate quits speaking. And I won't interrupt your sentence unless it's a St. Paul sentence, one of those that goes on for a whole paragraph. But we will let you finish what you're saying. Now we have an usher here, and the questions from the audience are going to be in writing, so she will have cards for you and pencils if you need them, for you to put your question on the cards. All the cards come up to me. Only thing and if you need it picked up, just raise your hand, and she will bring paper and pencil to you. I'm going to ask you please to write legibly and to keep your questions brief. I will not ask questions of a personal nature or anything that has any personal invective in it. Those would be out of order. I won't even ask them. Sometimes you will be you may hear me ask if there's several questions on the same topic, I may rephrase, and you might not hear it exactly, but, and I may combine at times. Although right now it doesn't look like there'll be that many questions. So Kathy Wheeler is our usher back there. And so that she will bring the questions to me, and I obviously will try to cover as many questions as we can. So we already have 4, that's great. So right now the candidates have drawn lots to determine the order in which they'll speak. I remind you, each candidate has 2 minutes for an opening statement. And so our first candidate is Nancy Raring. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight and allowing us to talk about our campaigns. And thank all of you for caring enough to come out tonight and listen to us. My campaign is driven by a lifelong passion for this beautiful place that we live. I'm a native Bay Area resident. I'm a conservation advocate. I'm a sailor. And I have over 30 years of experience in property development and management. I will bring an experienced and balanced voice to the Harbor District. I'm familiar with land use issues, leasehold interests, writing leases, landlord-tenant responsibilities, and it turns out that that's a big part of what the Harbor District does. That, coupled with my sailors' understanding of marina facilities, infrastructure, water quality issues, and public access around facilities will be very helpful on the commission. As a conservationist, I know that environmental protection is an important part of the whole picture. With climate change and sea level rise, development and concern for the environment have to go hand in hand. We need a thoughtful and balanced approach to growth in our county and in our decision making. We need to acknowledge that there will be growth, but we need to protect our public spaces, our coastlines, and our marine sanctuaries. Along with Ed, I have a track record of working for the community. My broad experience working collaboratively on public policy committees will be an asset to the commission. I look forward to working with fellow commission members on the district's ongoing strategic planning to improve visitor facilities and safety, to protect our thriving fishing industry, and to increase educational outreach and access for all county residents.
Thank you, Ms. Rearing. And our second candidate is Ed Lorenas. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Ed Lorenas. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. I appreciate that you're taking the time to listen to us so that you can make informed decisions. Please feel free to call me or email me with any questions. My contact information is on my website, edlorenas.com. I am completing my 2nd year as a San Mateo County Harbor District Commissioner, and I'm running for re-election. If re-elected, I will continue the important work I've started, and I will continue to exert a thoughtful, data-driven influence on the board's decisions. I'm running on a slate with Nancy Rearing. Nancy is a strong, creative, independent thinker. We both have a long history of public service. As board members of the Committee for Green Foothills, we have worked with our coastal communities advocating for responsible development, public access, and environmental protection. Together, we will change the nature of the board, one which will vote for protecting our national marine sanctuaries, unlike the current board, which refused to tell the federal government that the Harbor District does not support offshore drilling off our coast. I'm co-founder of the San Mateo County chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. I lead the chapter's water quality testing lab, which has been operating since 2002. As most of you know, we recently prevailed in our efforts to protect Martha's Beach public access. When I was elected, I received 80% of the votes, the highest number of any candidate in San Mateo County that year, because voters agreed with me that environmental protection and planning are not mutually exclusive. Pillar Point is surrounded by marine sanctuaries, including Pillar Point Marsh, listed as one of only 34 areas of special biological significance, yet the district has no policy on wildlife protection. That's why I founded the Wildlife Protection Committee. I also founded the Climate Change Committee to include sea level rise and other inevitable consequences of climate change in our planning and decision-making. As Commissioner, I have been a strong advocate for open government and inclusion of the public voice in decision-making. I'd appreciate your
Thank you,
vote.
Mr. Lorenz. Our third candidate is Henry Sutter. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate it. I've been a public servant for over 45 years, 17 with the City of South City, and, 28 with the Sheriff's Office currently as a sergeant. So I'm well adversed to dealing with situations and bringing communities together. Excuse me. I'm able, and then I also own a small business in Coma. So I'm well aware how to do project analysis and project management. I've worked with countless government groups, including the county and state and federal groups, while working for the Sheriff's Office. I'm a listener, I'm ethical, and I'm a problem solver. The harbor's got a lot of issues. We need a new general manager. The manager has to be someone that's well-versed in government finances and budgeting, somebody that's going to work with the board and line staff and the people of San Mateo County, and support the board. My goal is to get the residents of San Mateo County's trust and move forward. I know we have a strategic plan. I want to have results and work together to get those results. May it be marine sanctuaries, fishing regulations, anything to do with protecting the assets of our harbor here in Princeton and in South San Francisco. South San Francisco, they're up for their contract right now, or they're talking about it? Okay, thank you.
I think you'll have a chance. Thank you, Mr. Sutter. And finally, Seppi Richardson, you have 2
Yes.
minutes.
Hi, thank you very much for this opportunity. Unlike other candidates here, I'm right now ready to get to work. I've been in public life as a mayor, council member with the city of Brisbane for the past 15 years, and a few years ago I got out. At the same time, I am a water agency director that deals with water issues in the 9 Bay Area counties. I am chair of the Civil Service Commission that deals with all kinds of issues with when there are conflicts there, how do you resolve those conflicts? And I've been on LAFCO that audits special districts and agencies to make sure that they are functioning well, and when they are not, we know how to help them to get back to normal or dissolve the district. I came here about 47 years ago, and how I got into public service was getting introduced to one of the congressmen that helped me to deal with an issue. And I realized that, my God, definitely politics in this country can work really well when people are there not just for self-interest, to help. And that's why I'm here. I want to help. I'm a financial expert. I've had my financial consulting company since 1985. I work with troubled organizations, and I help them to turn back to recovery. Under my clock, there has never been an organization that went bankrupt. Number one job with this harbor district is to make sure that I'm a good steward of the public finance. I'm a good watchdog. I would definitely make sure that all these lawsuits that has happened, this dysfunctionality that has happened, people have taken sides, 2 votes, 3 votes here, is to stop all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, it's time for us to get to questions, and if you haven't submitted your question yet, just raise your hand, and we will have that brought up. Kathy Wheeler will bring that up. I would just remind you, each candidate has 1 minute to answer the question. So I will start with this, I think this was the first question that came up, so we'll start with it. You may have covered this a little bit in your opening statement, but this one says specifically, what is your background in environmental protection? And we will start with Mr. Lorenas. 1 minute.
Well, like I said in my opening statement, I was founder of the San Mateo County chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. That's in 2002. I've worked with numerous groups on water quality, public access. Our Surfrider just prevailed in a case that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court at Martin's Beach. I'm also on the board of directors of Committee for Green Foothills. I've worked with them for many years on, especially on coastside issues. With, just as an example, we work with community members. Right now we're working with the community on the development that's slated for Dunes Beach. There's a massive development project going there, and we're bringing in the community to see how they want to deal with it. And what usually happens is we work with the developers and bring the community in and come up with a compromise that everyone can live with.
All right, thank you. The next one, Seppi Richardson, your background in environmental protection.
Yes. As a council member in the city of Brisbane, Brisbane is extremely conscious about environment. They don't want housing, they want to have everything, open space. And in the 16 years that I served in that area, we were very conscious about environment. We have had some land that has been very polluted. We've done a lot of job in making sure that that area is clean. We have bought a lot of private lands to make sure we preserve them for open space. And for balanced growth, I've been on ABAG that deals a lot with environmental issues, for the land use, for balanced growth, for transportation, to make sure. I've been on a Caltrain Transportation Authority that had to deal with the money part of the transportation. And I have served on Open Space and Ecology Committee to make sure that we keep the rights operable.
Oh, that was very good. Thank you. Next, Nancy Rearing, question on your background in environmental protection. You have 1 minute.
Well, my very first environmental act was when I was in high school in Belmont, and a new development was paving over a beautiful rolling oak woodland. And my friends and I got out and protested to no avail, but that was the awakening of my environmental consciousness. And then my first donation dollars were spent on Save Bear Island, which was a successful campaign in San Mateo County on the Bay. Since then, I spent 9 years as an appointed member of Woodside's Open Space Committee. And now I'm on the Committee for Green Foothills as a director with Ed Lorenas, and we're involved in all kinds of issues in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. I've attended Coastal Commission meetings, and in fact, one of my endorsers is Dr. Charles Lester, the former director of the Coastal Commission.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Sutter.
Well, my background goes back to when I was with my father and my brother and learning how to fish. And my father taught us, you always take care of the resources. So if we caught a fish that was too small, we put it back. If we got one that was full of eggs, we put it back. My personal experience, I've worked with the coast and open space on mountain lion issues and protecting the habitat of the mountain lions. I've attended a lot of meetings and met with a lot of farmers to find solutions to help live with the mountain lion. I've worked with the Boy Scouts of America in planting trees. In one particular group, we planted 300 willow trees to preserve a wetlands area where there was the erosion. And doing that, I helped those young men, or we accomplished something and gave them some standards to look up to in their life. Every day of my life, I protect whatever there is that has to be protected.
Thank you. So we'll go on to the next question.
Questions?
And, oh, thoughts, okay, great, thank you. Well, I'm gonna try this one. Who benefits from the Harbor District's Joint Powers Authority with South San Francisco to run Oyster Point Marina? Who benefits from the Harbor District's Joint Powers Authority with South San Francisco to run Oyster Point Marina? And we'll start with Mr. Sutter.
Who benefits? All the residents of San Mateo County benefit. There's 780,000 residents. The Joint Powers Agreement was done in 1977, and it's going to expire here in '26. I went to a meeting the other day, and they were talking about extending it and the future impacts and the construction that's going to go on there. I'm sorry. Oyster Point makes money. They made $432,000 this year, not including capital improvements. The ferry system to South City is a great thing for the county. It's going to help congestion on Highway 101. It's going to bring tourism. It's going to start small businesses around that harbor. And not only the traffic, the fuel and the exhaust from the vehicles are going to help with climate control and
Thank you. 1 minute's not very long sometimes on some of these questions. Thank you. Next, Nancy Raring, the question on who benefits from the Joint Powers Authority with South San Francisco.
I agree to some extent with Henry that there is some benefit that goes all around, but from my reading and assessment, I think that South San Francisco benefits more than the Harbor District does. I think there should be some modifications to the agreement, and I, as a commissioner, would want to look very carefully at that.
Thank you. Let's see, next, Seppi Richardson.
Yes.
You can answer that one. Okay.
We are running for San Mateo County Harbor District. We're not here to protect one end of the county and not the other end of the county. My job is to make sure that the taxpayers' money spent wisely and help the economy, create jobs, is environmentally safe, responsible. If you go look at what's happening in the North County up there, is employment is amazing, traffic is a problem, we need to have ferry, we need to use our waterways, to be able to reduce our transportation problems that we have. Taxpayers' money is paying to this harbor district, and it's going to help everybody. It's not just for one end of the county or the other. We need to make sure we understand that. This is a San Mateo County Harbor District.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Lorenas.
Well, I would say this. It remains to be seen who benefits from Oyster Point Marina and the JPA. What I'm hoping happens is that the process that is set in place and what actually happens is plays in an open government where the voters of San Mateo County, the taxpayers, because the district gets half of its budget from the voters, have something to say with what happens in Oyster Point, and that the environment there and the public's access is protected.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's another question. Here we go back a little bit to environmental protection. This question says, I heard that the Interior Secretary is in the process of changing the protection language of some of our San Mateo County coast, potentially opening for offshore oil drilling. What is your position on that? And let's start with Seppi Richardson.
Sure. We are truly blessed to be living where we are living. We have a lot of oil. We don't need to destroy our coasts and have offshore drilling. We don't need that. So that part I'm very concrete, and I would not support offshore drilling.
Thank you. And let's see, next, Mr. Sutter.
My sentiments exactly. I'm an avid fisherman. I use the coast and the bay all the time. I've seen what oil rigs do to the habitat, and myself personally, I'm against it.
Thank you. And that was Mr. Lorenz.
Well, I agree with everyone here. Absolutely, I'm against oil drilling off our national marine sanctuaries. And in particular, in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, the very existence of that sanctuary was in response to the potential of oil drilling in our waters off of California. That's why they were established. And I will do everything in my power to keep that from happening.
All right, thank you. And let's see, Ms. Rearing.
We are unanimous in our opposition. I strongly oppose offshore oil drilling, and I would definitely vote for the Harbor District to make a stand, a united stand against it.
Okay, thank you. That was a quick, easy one, I think. Okay, and let's see, the next question is, in a perfect world, what would you do to improve either harbor in order to attract more visitors for recreation or dining? So let's start with Ms. Rearing.
In a perfect world, what would I do? Well, I know that in its current state, the Oyster Point area, there is development going on there, and I believe it's essential to preserve the open space and the extension of the Bay Trail that is slated to be there. And I think it will take a perfect world to ensure that that happens. With regard to the Half Moon Bay facilities, there's the Johnson Pier renovation, marine facilities, ongoing need, and I think it would be lovely to do something right at the end of the docks that would be very welcoming for visitors that were coming along the coastal trail, where they could stop and look at the boats and rest and enjoy the view.
All right, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Lorenz, improving either harbor.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think in a perfect world, we would work with, as commissioners, we would develop a strategic plan that includes all of the stakeholders in our community and all of the taxpayers in San Mateo County. And in that strategic plan, we would lay out how we would deal with the harbor with respect to climate change, with respect to the needs of our commercial fishermen and recreational fishermen, and develop a plan that protects the environment and works with all of the stakeholders to create an environment that people want to come to.
Thank you, thank you. And Mr. Sutter.
Well, South City is, again, under development, and they have hotels going up, they have restaurants going up. Our function there is to manage the marina and the fuel docks. I think when all that growth comes in, right now our marina there is at 78% full. I think once it's done, and if with a little bit of modification, we'll be at 100%. As far as Princeton, I don't know if you go there on a weekend, but that place is loaded with people. There's people from all over that walk those piers every day. It's a beautiful place. I live here. I frequent it quite a bit. I'm an avid fisherman. Some of the issues as far as restaurants, I think the restaurants do pretty good. They bring a lot of people. On a given day, you can't even find a parking space there. And it's just a beautiful place to be and a beautiful place to live. And I think with the strategic plan, there'll be some movement forward.
Thank you. And finally, Seppi Richardson,
Yes.
improve Either Harbor.
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I live in La La Land. I like to have, I see all this water, I like to make it like Florence, or make it like Venice, to have water taxis, bus taxis. I want to have a transportation system that we would not have this kind of a backlog that takes us 3-4, sometimes really that long to go and come back, 3-4 hours for me to go sometimes to Highway 1 and come back. In a real world, fantasy world, I like to be able to make sure that we have a tourism all throughout the county, that people would go. We have beautiful harbor, make sure that those harbors are safe, they are repaired, that the pedestrian and fishermen can use. In a real world, I want to make sure that we have thriving businesses for the business people that are in that area. And there was one more thing that I wanted to say, and I'm having a senior moment, and that had to do with dredging.
Maybe we'll get to that one. Okay, thank you.
I hope you can fill the rest of it.
Yeah, okay. All right. There are a couple of questions here on, and actually, one of these writings is really small, so unfortunately. There are a couple of questions here on toxic cleanup. So will the San Mateo County Harbor District be liable for any of the toxic cleanup from the old South San Francisco dump? And somebody else wants to know, why should countywide taxpayers pick up the cleanup costs? So if you could just address that issue of toxic cleanup. And let's start with Mr. Lorenas.
Well, one of the challenges that we've had with our commission is that our dealings with South San Francisco have not been very open. So there is a definite lack of information coming from South San Francisco to the commission. We have a Oyster Point or South San Francisco Oyster Point Liaison Committee. But all I can tell you is that from my understanding of the agreements that are coming forth, they're not done yet. They're heading our way. The Harbor District is not going to be responsible for cleaning up any of the problems with Oyster Point. That's where the agreement, the way it's going, looks like it's going to be on the hands of South San Francisco.
Thank you. And let's see, Ms. Rearing.
I appreciate the question, and I think I'm even less qualified to answer it than Ed is in his capacity as a current commissioner. Without the general public being privy to what's going on, I don't really know how to answer the question. It's something I would be very concerned about as commissioner.
Okay, thank you. And Seppi Richardson is next.
Well, I guess I have the answer. Because we do have a lot of cleanup in Brisbane. And who really pays for it? The landowners. Those are the people that have to pay for it. Also, as an elected official in that area that I have worked very closely with all the cities all throughout the county, South San Francisco is not closed to giving information. They're very amiable. They are serving all throughout the county. They want to improve that area. They want to work with all the stakeholders. If we just go in there and demand, we want this, we want that, and we don't even know what we want, and we just attack them like the way we talk at our Harbor Commission meetings, we're not going to go anywhere. But I would tell you that they are extremely willing to work with anybody in the county, particularly Harbor District. They want to preserve the Oyster Marina. They want to protect all the harbor, any function that we have in this area.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Sutter.
Well, I attended a meeting last week where the South City, or the Harbor District was out at South City talking about pretty much this very issue and renewing the contract. And what the general manager said was that anything hazard, unless we caused it, is taken care of by the city of South San Francisco. So as far as us being responsible, no. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, excuse me. No,
That
if you have a
was
written
the-
question, excuse me. If you have a question, would you please write it and we'll follow up? Thank you.
I was just
No,
asking the candidate to clarify
right.
which banner that we
I
have.
s- Thank you. We want- The idea is, if, maybe afterwards, if you could ask the question. Thank you. Did we cut? All right. Okay. The next, there's another question here on why doesn't this Harbor District enforce the lease requirement in the RV lot lease? If elected, will you support enforcement? So that may be, Mr. Sutter, do you want to start with that one?
What RV park are we talking about?
I haven't.
Pillar Point, the one that we sublease to a private party that leases it out? I don't have the answers to that. But if elected, I will relook at the leases, and if they're not where they should be renegotiated.
And thank you. Seppi Richardson.
Yes.
Any ideas on Seppi?
I do have ideas on this too. And, you know, coming from Brisbane, it's a small community, and people think that they can drive in the street and don't stop for the stop sign. Don't have a stoplight, The police came back and said, hey, council members, if you don't want us to have enforcement of the rules that you have, don't make the rules. If you have rules, if you have leases, abide by that. That's my position. The enforcement, we have laws, we have regulation, we have leases, we need to enforce it. Otherwise, don't put it in there. If you want to have it haphazard, then you get what you get. But if you have laws, you enforce it.
Thank you. And Mr. Lorenas, the question about enforcing a lease requirement.
Thank you. I believe the question refers to the RV lot at Surfers Beach. That's leased to a local developer. And it's a great question because the way that lease is written, it's written in favor of the leasee. The person makes over $800,000 a year. The district maybe gets $40,000 a year. The lease says that there should be public bathrooms available to the public. He's never complied with that. I actually did try to get the district to do something about it. We had our lawyers talked to his lawyers, he talked to the city, and we've gotten nowhere with it. So I think this is something that, with a good commission, we can actually get somewhere. It's going to take some stamina from the community and from the commissioners to actually enforce that lease.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Raring, do you know anything about the lease requirement?
Unfortunately, the district does hold some very bad leases, and unfortunately, you can't just break a lease. However, moving forward, the district does need to enforce the terms of their leases that do exist. They need to look at them very carefully and not make any more bad leases. And this is an area of strength that I bring as a long-term property manager. I would want to look very closely at the leases that were being written going forward and make sure that they benefit the entire county and the Harbor District.
Thank you. Okay, we've got some more coming up. Not too much time left, but we'll try to get a couple more questions. Which of the two San Mateo County district-run harbors has a more sustainable income from berthing fees, fuel sales, and visitor recreation? Does the budget reflect that proportionally in the operating costs that are collected and expended? If you can do that in 1 minute. Ms. Raring?
I'm sorry, but that's an area I'd be interested in looking at, but I really can't answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lorenas? You don't have any?
Well, it'd be difficult to put it out in 1 minute, but I would tell you that the Harbor District benefits much more in balancing its budget through Pillar Point than it does with South San Francisco. Our books look good, but that's because we haven't done the capital improvement projects at Pillar Point. And we've also not done capital improvement projects in Oyster Point. Now, it's my opinion that we should spend our taxpayer money more on Pillar Point because the city of South San Francisco owns the property in South San Francisco. They own Oyster Point. The Harbor District does not. We own Pillar Point.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, Mr. Sutter.
Can you ask the question again?
Which of the two San Mateo County district-run harbors have a more sustainable income from berthing fees, fuel sales, and visitor recreation? Does the budget reflect that proportionally in the operating costs that are collected and expended?
As far as South City, it's just the marina and the fuel dock. Brings in $432,000 a year in profit for that. They have 11 employees there. There's a total of 38 employees for the whole county, or for the whole district. 11 there, 14 in Pillar Point, and the rest are administrative. Pillar Point has a more financial upbringing, especially with the commercial fishing fleet. Last year alone, it brought in $12 million in commercial fish sales. That doesn't include the thousands of people that came to the dock and bought fish and visited their local restaurants and hotels. As far as the berths, Pillar Point is at 100% capacity. I think we have to look at some of the charges they're charging on these boats, especially the liveaboards. In my eyes, they're not up to par. I think they can make more money.
Okay, thank you. And Seppi Richardson.
Yes. Having served almost 15, 16 years at LAFCO that audited Special District, Harbor District, and having been in Brisbane that we have our own marinas, we've had to look at all of that. You audit to see what is coming, what kind of money is coming in, is it stable? If it's not stable, every physical location has its own unique features. Oyster Marina has potential to do a lot of things. In harbor, down here, I understand we need to do dredging, we need to do work on our ramps, we need to remodel some of our roads or that fishermen can access easily and the pedestrian can access easily. Both of them provide money. They're not draining money. Harbor finances are good. They have good reserve. They have plans for capital improvements. I want to make sure that we pay down our pension funds, liabilities.
Thank you. Here's a little lighter question that maybe, but it's kind of interesting. Would you consider adding elements to the seafood festival, such as a giant omelet and seafood festival in coordination with the Chamber of Commerce? So I think there's been some interest in the social, and the tourism. So maybe this one goes to that, adding elements to the seafood festival. So let's see. How about Seppi Richardson? You want to take that one on?
If there are people who they see there is need for that, definitely I would be willing to explore and see how we can make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. Sutter.
Well, they just recently had a harbor festival a few weeks ago, and I was told there was about 12,000 people that attended. I think we can do much better, kind of like the art and wine festivals, maybe not to that magnitude, but so many people love fresh seafood and there's so many things you can make from it, and also our local farmers would get involved. And it's a way to make money and it's a way to bring people together.
Thank you. And Ms. Raring.
Well, I think whatever the community wants to add to an event like that would be a lot of fun. I was at a Port Fest in Redwood City last weekend, and they had live music, and they had CVs there, and it was delightful.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Larinas.
Well, The festival event that happened just recently, that was put on by the Seafood Association, and it's really a celebration of our fishermen and our community, and it's a lot of fun, and I believe that they did a great job, and if they want to do some more food, I would be happy to do that. I'm a big fan of seafood, just like everybody else.
Yeah, that was just to lighten things up a little bit
Yeah.
from some of the, okay, thank you. Let's see, we want to give you time for your closing statements, so we have time maybe for a couple more questions. What should be done to increase harmony and civility on the board? Or is there a problem with harmony and civility on the board? You might have a question there. Mr. Sutter, would you like to take that one on?
Well, with my background working in the sheriff's office and managing up to 50 people at one time, you have to be approachable, you have to be workable, you have to work together to find solutions. Everybody's got an opinion, and you have to listen to those opinions and come up with a solution that everybody can be happy with. As far as I've listened to these commissioners talk, and I think they all have good ideas. It's just working together to find common goals. And one thing I bring to the table, because I've worked with communities about crisis intervention, undocumented immigrants, helping them get their licenses, everybody has something in the game, and if you work together, you can always find a solution.
Thank you. Mr. Lorenas.
Well, I've worked in the biotechnology industry for many years. I managed a large project with scientists from all over the world and many different disciplines. And what I can tell you is that when you're working in an organization like that, you do have a common goal and you work together. The challenge with any special district is like it's a family. You don't get to choose who you're sitting with, and it can be a little more exciting. So one thing I can tell you with this harbor district, while it has been criticized for having what I would call lively meetings, we've got a lot done. I'll give you an example. The Wildlife Protection Committee has worked with the community to bring all the different interests together: dog owners, people that care about marine mammals, people that care about birds, and they're currently working together to come up with some solutions. We've put up signs in the harbor now to educate the public on how to protect marine mammals and birds.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Richardson.
Yes, I'm actually with my work, I'm a mediator. I have observed some of the Harbor Commission meetings. I hear collaboration, and really I see it's a 3-2. Collaboration is gone. Everybody has staked out their own, what they want to see happen and what they don't want to see happen. The things getting done, 3-2 votes. Things are getting done by intimidating staff, cussing them literally in public. Lawsuit money is unbelievable. And I don't think that as adults we come into an organization to be serving the public, we should act like that. I believe that we need people who are not understanding their role to be trained in that area and be willing to get out of their comfort zone and work with others for the good of the communities. For this, every day I wake up in my life, I thank God I'm in America. Every day.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Rearing.
I've had long experience on public policy committees, and people often don't agree on things, and they bring their passions to the table, and that's part of the work that gets done. And sometimes consensus means a 3-2 vote. That's the best that you can do. I'm a good listener. I like hearing other people's opinions. I don't come to meetings with my mind already made up. I keep an open mind. But at the end of the day, I'm going to vote my conscience and my passion, and I think that's what all commissioners need to do. Every elected official needs to do that.
Okay, thank you. Well, in order to give you time for your closing statements, I think maybe this should be the last question. It's how can we balance tourism and commercial fishing at Princeton? And Mr. Labrinus, would you like to start that one?
It's a good question. So I don't think that there, commercial fishing and recreational fishing are at odds with each other. I think the best thing for the Harbor District to do is to provide policies that protect the marine life and work with other agencies that protect marine life, because it's a resource that's important to all of us, and it's a common goal. If you protect nature, it'll take care of you.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Rearing?
I agree with that, and I think maybe part of the answer to that question is education for the fishermen too. And I have found the fishermen to be very friendly to the public when friends and I are walking around the docks or the piers. Some of them because they want to sell you fish, but others of them just because they enjoy the interaction. So I didn't really know that there was a big conflict right now between the different users in Princeton, but maybe some of it has to do with outreach and education.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Richardson?
Yes, I do understand that there's a problem, particularly when it comes to access, pedestrian going through, and commercial cars coming through. I think part of it is to really look at the way we are accessing our facilities, who's using our facilities. I know fishermen love being what they're doing. They're there. People love going over there to enjoy the seafood, access, whatever. I think we can watch all of that and make sure we are making improvements that is workable for everybody.
All right, thank you. And finally, Mr. Sutter, question.
Well, to go there and watch the fishermen unload their vessels and put them in the trucks is awe-striking. But the thing is, the commercial fishermen are driving large forklifts, carrying 3,000–4,000 pounds of squid or crabs, and they're loading them into 60-foot trucks. Problem is, a lot of people visitors that walk down the pier, walk down the middle of the pier when a truck driver's trying to back up a 60-foot truck, and we're very lucky that nobody's been hurt. The solution to that is, well, most of the time the commercial guys don't work on weekends, they work during the week, but during crab season, salmon season, they work then. The solution is a parallel pedestrian pier to keep the pedestrians off the main pier during work hours. And I am surprised in all the years that I've worked down there that nobody's been run over. And I think that would be a great solution. It's doable.
Thank you. Well, now each candidate has 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we reverse the order of the opening statements for our closing statements. So the first closing statement will be from Seppi Richardson. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I've been in public life since really 1972. I've worked with school districts. I've worked with 7 different bargaining teams, strike, mediation. I'm a financial expert. I can walk into this job and I don't need to have transition time to get trained and understand this and understand I'm ready to work. And I'm very familiar with county. I know all the stakeholders. I have an excellent, one time when I was serving on the city council, one of the council members turned back to me and said, "You're not from this country. You cannot serve public life. You cannot be our mayor." And I was so embarrassed that somebody would look at me so differently, that I'm not useful to them. And I said, I'm going to take the high road and make sure that I learn and prove to them that I can do it. And that's how I started my public life. I've served in 25 committees all throughout the state, And in none of them would you ever hear that I've had any conflict with anybody, that I've not worked with anybody, that I've created a lot of legal problems. I am there to help, to get things done. I have a lot of plan. We are blessed to have this kind of a coastal in our county. We have amazing people in our county that want to help out. I'm very resourceful, and I'm ready to help. And I am financial expert. I know how to make sure that your harbor district is functioning well. And if you have issues with South San Francisco and other cities, I'm there that I can help. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Mr. Sutter. 2 minutes.
Well, as you know, I have 45 years of public service. And the mission statement of law enforcement is basically to protect and serve in 2 words. And the Harbor District's mission statement is very similar, to make sure the harbor's safe and clean and environmentally friendly and financially sound. So my plan is I'm retiring here in the next few months. I'm leaving public service, and I want to give back for everything I've gotten from working where I've worked. I bring a lot to the table. I've worked with dozens of groups with mentally ill, Hispanic communities, farming communities, environmental groups, and I'm the kind of guy that I want to do what's right. My main focus is to do what's right for the harbor and protect the harbor. I fished in the harbor, both harbors, with my dad and brother since the mid-'60s. And 50 years later, I'm still doing the same thing with my brother, my kids, and my grandkids, nephews, and nieces. And the harbor's a beautiful place, and I want to protect that jewel for future generations to enjoy it as much as I have. And I think with my experience and my background, owning a business, being able to budget and analyst and project management, I can do that. And I'm very good at working with people. I'm an open listener. I listen, I evaluate, and I come up with my own decision. I'm not going to be preconceived with a notion when I walk in. I'm going to listen to everybody, because everybody has something important to bring to the table. And together, we can make the harbor a great place. It is a great place, just got to be fine-tuned.
Right, thank you. And next, Mr. Lorenas, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I said this in my opening statement, I'd like to say it again, is that I very, very much believe that environmental protection and plan development are not mutually exclusive. I'd like to see the district repair its infrastructure, but I'd like to see it do it in such a way that we start with a strategic plan that includes all the stakeholders, all the taxpayers in San Mateo County, all of the folks that use our harbors. One of the most important things to me is environmental protection. As you know, I've been an advocate for that with Surfrider for a long time. I'd like to see that environmental protection is important to the Harbor District. And I would also like the Harbor District, as part of its strategic plan, consider the importance of climate change on our development of the harbor. I would like also to bring back the concept of the National Marine Sanctuary Visitor Center. I was on the committee years ago that was trying to bring the National Marine Sanctuary Visitor Center to the harbor as part of the education. And I believe that educating our youth is extremely important, because they're going to be the caretakers of our environment in the future.
All right, thank you. And finally, Ms. Raring, 2 minutes.
This election is huge for San Mateo County because of the issues that are going to be looked at between now and 2022. There's going to be no way to undo decisions that are ill thought out, or undo some leases that may have been badly written. I have a track record of working for the community, and I have a community behind me that's perhaps a little different than some of the members that's currently sit on the commission. As a businesswoman, I understand how to read financial reports, and I know how to work with leases and leasehold interests. At Committee for Green Foothills, I've worked with issues that include traffic, large-scale development, public land use. And my vision for the Harbor District, well, it's currently in capable hands and financially sound due to good management. As a commissioner, I'd have the opportunity to help or have an influence on who is hired and to make sure the general manager is as capable as Steve McGraw. The job is complex, and we're going to need an individual like the person we have now. In the short term, I'm very interested in working to establish a strategic plan. The Harbor District can't operate fiscally and responsibly without one. Piecemealing projects is not productive, and ultimately it costs taxpayers more. We need a plan developed with public input that sets goals and makes the best use of land and money for everyone in the county. I'm running for Harbor District Commissioner because of my passion for district interests and my fitness for the job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would just like to say, you can find more information about candidates on the League's Voters Edge website. The candidates, I don't know, I haven't checked to see if they're up there, but all the candidates have been invited to put their information onto Voters Edge. For this election, everybody's going to receive a vote-by-mail ballot. You probably have already received your sample ballot, when it has lots of information about the vote centers and where they are and when they open and how to return your ballot. So just remind you, the deadline to register regularly is October 22nd. The election is the 6th, but you can go to a vote center and you can actually register and then cast a provisional ballot if you know somebody that hasn't registered up until Election Day, and on Election Day. So just remember to vote on November 6th. And now it's time to join me in thanking the candidates and with our applause. And thank you for coming out. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.